Hello YouTube. Today I want to explain why feminists hate you. Now, to be clear, I'm not talking about all feminists, nor am I talking about all audience members. If this video doesn't apply to you, feel free to ignore it. But if you're someone who has challenged feminist ideology or watched others who have, you've probably come across feminists who express an extreme level of hate to you, and you may struggle to understand why this is. To get an answer to this question, we're going to have to go into the mind of a radical feminist. So strap on your goggles and keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle. Here we go. So feminists believe in equality. Let's assume for the moment that this is true. But this belief is based on a couple of assumptions. The first is that women are an oppressed group. That is, that women have it worse than men in society. The second, and related, is that we live in a patriarchy. And that means that we live in a system that enforces traditional gender roles and systematically benefits men, whilst at the same time disadvantaging women. To the radical feminist, these two things are absolute fact. They are as true as the earth being round, the sun rising in the east, and rain being wet. There is no way any sane person could deny these two basic facts of life in the Western world. So, the radical feminist quest for equality takes the form of trying to end the oppression of women and trying to dismantle the very system our current society is built on, since that system disadvantages women. After all, how can equality be achieved if everything is stacked in men's favor? This is why bad things that happen to women are fundamentally different than bad things that happen to men. When they happen to women, it's a part of a societal system that is designed to hurt women and keep them down. Something bad happening to a man may be bad, but men are overall benefited by the system, so it balances out. So you as a radical feminist go online to spread your message of equality and liberation of women. You need more people to understand the way the world really works if it's ever going to change. But then you come across someone who not only rejects the label of feminist, but is actively arguing against it. Maybe they're even trying to say that men are more disadvantaged than women. Well, if you're reasonable at all, you probably just think this person has been misinformed, or maybe they're just plain ignorant. So maybe you try and explain that we do indeed live in a patriarchy, and that women in reality are the ones who are oppressed. I mean, surely they know this deep down, but they've just been given some bad information, or they just haven't woken up to how the world really is. And you really shouldn't need to give them a bunch of evidence for this, because after all, it's the most obvious thing in the world. It's as obvious as the sun rising. But then you realize they have been told. They display a knowledge of feminist ideas, but for some reason, they still deny reality. Now you start to think, what kind of horrible person would deny the obvious fact that women are oppressed? Feminism is trying to help everyone. The current patriarchal system is hurting everyone, and helping women can only be good for society as a whole, and that includes men. By fighting against that, you're fighting against positive change. You must be a terrible, awful person to do that. You must hate women if you're actively fighting against their liberation. Feminism is trying to take down the patriarchy, so if you're against feminism, that must mean that you support traditional gender roles, and you must be a fucking male supremacist. You must be a terrible, awful human being, and so I'm totally justified in treating you like one. So, stepping out of our feminist shoes, hopefully at this point you can see why a feminist might hate you. Depending on the person, they might even feel justified in doing all manner of bad things to you because you're a horrible, disgusting person as far as they're concerned. If it helps, Think of how you might treat a genuine Nazi, a member of the KKK, or of the Westboro Baptist Church. These are people who have views that run completely counter to how the world really is, and who are advocating for things that are actually harmful. What might you be willing to do or say to such a person? Because that's what many feminists feel justified in saying and doing to you. Now, of course, this doesn't excuse anyone treating others poorly. But my hope is that if you understand where people are coming from, it will help you in your interactions with them. I also want to prevent people from doing the same thing in the other direction. I've seen a lot of people talk about feminists the same way many feminists talk about people like men's rights activists. I've heard people saying that all feminists are evil, or that they're all horrible people. You have to remember that most feminists are probably actually good people. They just have different beliefs about how the world works. If they're fighting against men's rights, for example, it's not necessarily because they hate men. It's probably because they genuinely believe that society is designed in a way that already greatly benefits men. I think if you keep these assumptions in mind when you're talking to feminists, you'll end up having more productive discussions and might actually manage to avoid having them freak out and shout misogynist at you. Likewise, being aware of their assumptions can help you to look at feminist actions in a new light. In my experience, most people on either side of these kind of discussions are actually decent people, just doing what they think is right. So, hopefully this video has been helpful to you, and as always, like, dislike, subscribe, or share as you see fit, and I wish you all the best.